have you at our second episode of the Join Us at the Bar podcast.
We're here for you.
I am your host, Lisa Hanson, along with my co-host, Haley Bohlmann. We are your communications department for the Iowa State Bar Association. And we're just so happy to be back. It seems like we've been gone for a while, but we're doing the every other month. And so here we are, and with a big announcement. Today, we have a very special guest, Chief Justice of the Iowa Supreme Court, Susan Christensen. She's going to join us today.
I can't believe it.
How awesome is that?
So excited.
Right? I know. I can't wait.
Yes, and subscribe to the podcast for a lighthearted conversation surrounding legal topics that impact the profession and the community. Hit that subscribe button if you like the content. We sure appreciate it.
We are so thankful for your support.
Yes, and we thought it was important to share the Iowa State Bar Association's mission is to support our ISBA members who are lawyers and judges, support the community, and support the judicial system. Our goal in the communications department is simple and twofold. Number one, to advocate for attorneys, and number two, to elevate the profession among the public. So that's what we're hoping to achieve today through these lighthearted conversations, and we sure appreciate you joining us.
Yes, so whether you are new to this podcast or whether you're back for the second time, hit that subscribe button. Keep this content coming. We look forward to these sessions and we hope to have all of you join us. We look forward to your feedback. You can always reach out to us at communications@iowabar.org.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, we love your engagement and feedback. And if you missed the first episode, here's what to expect.
Yes.
Every episode has a theme, which is kind of an overall legal matter or legal area of law, a leadership development takeaway, wait, what? Segment?
What? Wait, what?
And we wrap up with a case study and your host takeaways.
Yes, and we do want to extend a huge thank you for some of those people that have engaged with us post our first episode. A shout out to ISBA past president Tom Levis. He was literally one of the first ones. He emailed both Haley and I after hours and was so encouraging.
I have to say the response we got and feedback was positive and very encouraging. So thanks for being there with us. And we want to give a couple shout outs to some other members as well.
Yes.
Thank you to Tam, our ISBA member from Ames.
Nice.
We really appreciate your comments. I know you appreciate the humor that we include in the conversation. So thank you.
Yes.
And then a shout out to a couple of our first subscribers to the podcast, which were ISBA members Hope Wood and Jacob Baker. So thanks for tuning in and subscribing, guys. We really appreciate it. And stay tuned because there's some fun giveaways that we plan to provide to our subscribers.
Yeah, so speaking of that, we actually sought out help with coming up for a name for the podcast. So it was our first contest. It was Name This Podcast, and we came up with Join Us at the Bar. Well, we didn't. One of our phenomenally brilliant members came up with this, and so that was great. And we are going to announce our next contest. So as you can see behind us, we have a logo now. I'm going to call it lame, but it's pretty boring.
Basic.
So, very basic. Yes, very, very basic. What we want is for our esteemed members who have mad skills way beyond the practice of law or the time that they spend at their desk. We want you to dig deep, go in, find those creative juices, and submit a new logo. That's what we're looking for. Just a couple requirements, a couple housekeeping items. Oh, forgot to mention this earlier. We're not attorneys. We do try to abide by the law. So we don't want to be in violation of any copyrights or intellectual property issues. So this does need to be original artwork. And we do want it to just include that Join Us at the Bar verbiage. Outside of that, do what you want to do. We are so excited to see what you present to us. We will be asking for submissions by June 1st. If you can just send those to communications@iowabar.org as a high resolution JPEG, we will take all your submissions, and I'm so excited to see what y'all come up with.
Yes.
We are desperate for a new logo, and
Please.
We're just so happy about it. So the winning submission is going to be the first to receive our new podcast swag with that logo on it. And what else should we do? I feel like that's not enough. I feel like that's not enough.
We will take in your entries, and please, if you have graphic designer friends, feel free to let them know they are able to enter as well. And the winner, the chosen logo, will get a $100 gift card for your service. We appreciate that, and definitely be the first to receive any of the swag that we move forward with that logo. So we really appreciate your entries and engagement. This is really your podcast. You named it. Let's come up with a good logo, and we'll look forward to announcing the winners here soon before the next podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait. Thank you in advance for your participation. Again, for your support. We are always grateful.
And now, setting the agenda for this episode so you know what to expect. Again, we do have a theme. This theme is criminal defense and also covering the right to legal representation. We will have a leadership development takeaway for you, which I'm really excited about. It's a personal code of ethics. And then finally, our wait what moment and our case study is kind of doubling as one today with our conversation with our VIP guest, Iowa Supreme Court Chief Justice Susan Christensen.
On to leadership development takeaway.
In this episode, our leadership development takeaway is a personal code of ethics. So what we're encouraging you to do is write down your core values, your core beliefs, maybe principles that you live by as a reference point to engaging in both your professional and personal life moving forward. And we have to attribute this idea. It did not come from Lisa or myself. It actually came from the Drake University Masters of Science in Leadership Development program as an assignment to write down your personal code of ethics. And actually that assignment took it one step further to look at your professional code of ethics, obviously for lawyers, offered by the Iowa Judicial Branch Office of Professional Regulation, and then compare those two and write about how you can apply those as a reference point to guide your decision making in the future. And so what we're asking you to do is just take maybe 20 minutes, get out a Word document, pen and paper, whatever works for you, and write down your main beliefs, core values, principles that you live by, and that will work as a reference point to guide your decision making in the future. So I actually did this in the past, and so did Lisa. So we will share with you what our personal code of ethics looks like. What I did was literally listed out a dozen characteristic traits or values or principles, like I'd mentioned, that I want to help guide my decision making and my life going forward. One of those I wrote down was challenge. And I wrote, I will never stop challenging myself or going out of my comfort zone because I know that is where the largest growth opportunities reside. That's one of the 12. I can share this with you in the rest of my personal ethics code. If you would like to see it, just email us at communications@iowabar.org. Lisa, do you want to share with us your personal code of ethics?
I do. Mine are pretty simplistic. So you don't pick on puppies, you don't pick on babies, and you don't pick on grandma and grandpa, right? Like, here's the thing. Babies can't advocate for themselves. Puppies can't advocate for themselves. And I feel like grandparents are just so trusting. So I'm saying that specifically, I mean it generally. Like, you don't pick on kids. You don't pick on animals. You don't pick on the elderly. And other than that, I feel like just don't be a jerk. That's pretty much my code of ethics. So those are my 3. And, you know, I think this exercise has been good because you lay that foundation and it just helps you as things arise. You've already had that foundation laid, whether it's a client that comes into your office or perhaps you're assigned a case. You can just do that deep dive into yourself, know who you are as a person, and be like, man, I am really struggling with this. But you've already answered the question before it arises.
Definitely encourage you to write down your personal code of ethics and share it with us if you want to. You don't have to, but definitely, you know, take it as an exercise. Block off maybe 20 minutes and just put it down on paper. It will be a great reflection point if you're ever in a moral dilemma situation, a challenging decision-making situation in your personal or professional life.
Yes, and because they intersect often, right? Like it's that integration of work and life, and this should just guide you along your way in both of those areas.
Yes, hopefully making your decisions easier.
Yes. All right.
I think it's time for our...
Wait, what? Okay, ready for it?
I'm ready.
Did you know that this year, 2023, marks the 60th anniversary of the unanimous Supreme Court case decision in Gideon v. Wainwright?
Wait, what?
I know. It's shocking. It's shocking that it actually went back to the Supreme Court after it was already, I thought, established as the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here to talk with us is Iowa Supreme Court Chief Justice Susan Christensen.
Yay!
Thank you so much for
Yes,
being
thank
here.
you.
We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
I appreciate being asked. Thank you.
Chief Justice Christensen was appointed to the Iowa Supreme Court in 2018, and she was elected as Chief Justice in 2020. She is married with 5 children and 8 grandchildren, and we just cannot be more pleased with your presence here because, as Lisa mentioned earlier in the episode, we are not attorneys.
Yes, we are not.
And so we appreciate your guidance and expertise. So thanks for all you do, and thanks for being here with us today. We just have a couple quick questions for you. So our case study for this episode, which also is our
Wait, what?
moment, is in commemoration of the 60th anniversary this year of U.S. Supreme Court case Gideon versus Wainwright. Can you please explain the significance of the case and how it applies to Iowans?
Sure. Back in 1961, a man named Mr. Gideon was arrested for larceny, I believe it was, theft and larceny. And the reason he was, there was a pool hall down in Florida, and it had a pool table, a jukebox, and booze. And all of a sudden there was a theft one night, and the cops investigated it, and a witness said, I saw Mr. Gideon leave the building with a bottle of wine, a pocket full of change at 5 in the morning. So he was promptly arrested and charged. And the charge that he had, that he acquired, carried with it a potential 5-year sentence in prison. And so his first hearing, he asked for an attorney, and the judge said no. And at that time, I don't know Florida law right now, but at that time, it was a felony, but they also had capital punishment and only applied for you only would qualify for an attorney if it was an offense that you could potentially be put to death. So of course a 5-year sentence didn't qualify, so the judge said no. So he tried throughout the proceeding. He kept saying, I didn't do it, never denied it. Had his own trial and actually did a bang-up job for a person who's representing himself. He cross-examined the state's witnesses, he called his own witnesses, he did an opening argument, a closing argument, and he did not testify, which means he took the 5th. And the jury came back guilty. So then he was put in prison for 5 years, and when you're in prison, they have a library, and he had lots of time. And so he started researching, and he came to his own conclusion that his Sixth Amendment right was violated. So the first thing he did was wrote a letter to the FBI. Now that may seem kind of crazy, and obviously the FBI thought so because they never responded. His next letter was to the Florida Supreme Court, and they didn't even respond. He's getting warmer though. His third letter was to Chief Justice Earl Warren of the United States Supreme Court, and they took it. They took it on cert, and they decided we're going to address this issue. Now it's important to know that it wasn't really the first time this issue had ever come up. There was already a case 20 years older called Bettis that said, nope, you don't have a constitutional right to an attorney in a case like this. And the dissenting opinion was written by Justice Black. He thought, yes, you do. You should have a constitutional right. How can it be a fair trial? So anyway, they took the case, and at that juncture, Mr. Gideon did get a lawyer, and he got one heck of a lawyer, Abe Fortas, who ended up being on the United States Supreme Court later. So he got a bang-up lawyer for not having one at all before. Mr. Fortas argued to the United States Supreme Court, how can this man possibly have a fair trial, which he's guaranteed under the Sixth Amendment, if he has an 8th grade education and is going up against a lawyer? How can that be fair? And the decision came down on March 18th, 1963, 9-0. They all agreed, you're right, Mr. Gideon. And the what? moment is
Oh my God, I love this so
that the
much.
moment that happened was when that decision came down, about 2,000 inmates in the state of Florida were released, not Mr. Gideon, that's the what moment. But anyway, Mr. Gideon had to have a new trial. He chose to hire his own attorney, which was a local person that he knew and trusted. I could only find one picture of him. I cannot remember his name, but they got to have a new trial, and he went after the witness, gave a pretty coarse cross-examination, and he also found the taxi driver who said Mr. Gideon didn't have a bottle of booze or a pocket of change, and the jury was out for an hour and came back and acquitted him. But he had already served 2 of 5 years. So I find it ironic that, and Justice Black wrote that opinion. He's the guy who wrote the dissent 20 years earlier and said, this isn't right.
Gosh.
So I think that's kind of cool. He got that chance to say, ha,
Oh.
told you so.
Oh.
But so that's kind of an interesting tidbit about the case. When Mr. Gideon passed away, he had no gravestone. He was challenged as far as financially, and I know this case made him famous, but that doesn't necessarily correlate with money. And the ACLU put together funds and have a headstone for him. And on the headstone is I cannot remember exactly what it says, but they took it from a letter that Mr. Gideon wrote to Abe Fortas to thank him. And that's what's on his tombstone. So anyway, here, what does it mean to Iowans? I mean, I think everyone knows. I'm a former prosecutor and a former trial judge. If you're charged with a crime and the only potential penalty is a fine, let's say you're speeding 100 miles an hour and you're going to have a huge fine, you do not have a right to an attorney because you're not going to be incarcerated even if you're found guilty. But if you get charged with theft or burglary, a Class C felony, and you can go to prison for 10 years, heck, you could go to prison for 30 days, a serious misdemeanor, and that entitles you to representation. Not just anybody. If you have the funds and the ability financially, you should hire your own attorney. But if you don't have the funds, you can make application and you qualify for a court-appointed counsel. And that's why that case is important to everybody.
Thank you so much for clarifying
Sure,
that
that
and enlightening us.
Yes, I don't know if you saw my face. I was like, really? Like, that was amazing. I was like, huh, that was so much more detail than I expected. Thank you.
You
That
bet.
was wonderful. And I think that will just benefit everyone. Was it as a result of that when that started being included in your Miranda rights? And I don't think
Miranda
you
was was later. I don't know for
Okay.
sure, but the right to an attorney, that had more to do with don't talk, you don't have to speak. That's the Fifth
Okay.
Amendment. The
Okay.
right to an attorney is the 6th.
Okay.
But the right to not have to say anything against yourself is the 5th.
Okay.
But I can see where they
The interaction a
yes,
little bit,
yes,
right?
right. By the way, the converse is true too. So if you got charged with a crime and you do not have the funds, you have a right to an attorney. Let's say you got charged with a crime and you may have the funds or not, doesn't matter. Either way, you do not want an attorney. And as a former trial judge, there were cases where I'm like, please, get a lawyer. Yes.
Trust me on
Yes.
this one.
But there is another case that says you have the right to also not have to have a lawyer to represent yourself. There are some protections in there. If, for example, if somebody's challenged mentally and having some issues that way, we can't let that happen.
Gotcha.
But then we go through a very detailed question and answer type situation in the courtroom to make sure that they are qualified and competent to truly waive an attorney. So it runs both ways. That's Fred, I believe, is that case. It runs both ways. You have a right to say, I demand an attorney if you're qualified, and you have the right to say, I demand to represent myself.
I'm doing it.
So it's kind of the converse of that.
Yes, and
Awesome.
thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I think, throughout conversations that we've had in not only the legal community, but the general public and leaders in the community as well, when we use the term indigent,
Nice.
sometimes the feedback that we've received is, okay, that's legal jargon, that doesn't relate to me. How do you prescribe that we can make it more relatable of a topic to the general public?
That's a great question. I think the word indigent, it's a weird word. It is a legal term, and I think most people out on the street might kind of think, what is that word? And I think instead the easiest way is that means as somebody who cannot afford to pay for an attorney. And there's a criteria. Iowa has adopted a guidelines that we follow for what income you have to have per year to qualify, and that's how we follow it. But I think that's an easier way for people to understand it, and also that it only counts in cases where you have jail hanging over your head. It's not in every case, and it's not in civil cases, just criminal cases where the penalty includes potential jail time.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah,
I think
such
that
a great
helps connect some
clarification.
dots for us too.
Yes,
so
yes.
thank
Perfect.
you.
You bet.
Was there anything else that you think that we should be mentioning on this or asking you about in regards to this topic? I feel like we've covered it, but just want to give you the
That was
platform
Well,
in case.
it may not be
Yeah.
this case in particular, but when you talk about making our laws more user-friendly and understandable to the general public, when I was a juvenile judge, I always had kids in the courtroom, and in Iowa we have something called Child in Need of Assistance, and we abbreviate that China, and everybody knows if you're in that biz what China means. And I always give kids a chance to talk about or to ask questions. I said, let me do the grown-up stuff here first, and then I'm gonna come back to you, and I'm gonna see if you have any questions. So us grown-ups do all this yibbity yap stuff, and I get back to him, and I said, okay, buddy, do you have any questions? He's about 8. He goes, are you sending me to China? And I realized, oh my gosh, this whole meeting, this whole half an hour, all he's thought about is China.
Oh, this poor
So
little
from
thing.
that made me very aware in juvenile court to not talk like that,
Yes.
especially in the presence of a child or somebody who may not be in the legal system.
Yeah.
So I think we could all benefit from that.
Yes, appreciated.
That's a very good point. Thanks for sharing
You
that.
bet.
You genuinely, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
And taking time
Yes.
out of your day to join us at the
Join
bar.
us at the bar.
Supreme Court Chief Justice Susan Christensen
Thank you.
has made our episode.
Yes.
Thank you so much
You bet.
for your insight.
Thank you.
It's time for our episode takeaways.
Yes.
So I will share with you my main takeaway.
Okay.
Not only am I incredibly honored that Chief Justice Christensen came to visit with us today, but I also want to highlight the knowledge that she shared with us as non-attorneys
Yes.
that is super helpful in understanding how U.S. Supreme Court decisions filter down and affect us in each state and each person as citizens of the state of Iowa. So I am very appreciative of the knowledge that she was able to shine light on, and I learned a lot from what she shared with us.
I did too. There were so many details of that case that I thought I had done my research that I was just not aware of. So again, we were just so fortunate to have her join us. I think my episode takeaway is going to be our leadership development piece. So with regard to that code of ethics, I would just encourage you, just take a few minutes, sit down, write them down. It doesn't have to be 3 points. It doesn't have to be 12 points. Just what is it that defines you, right, at your core as an attorney, as a human, because you just can't extract those from each other, right? Like it's that work-life integration. I'm going to go ahead and reemphasize mine. Don't pick on puppies. Don't pick on babies. And do not pick on grandma and grandpa. Oversimplified, but you get my point, right? So whatever it is that helps you ethically to just feel good about yourself at your core, do that. And then you can have that to rely on as you move forward.
And for a more serious take on the law, please check out the Iowa Lawyer magazine and the Iowa Lawyer Weekly e-newsletter, which are accessible at iowabar.org.
Okay, so moving forward, what do we have to look forward to?
We have a lot to look forward
Yes,
to.
we do.
Please
Yes, we do.
enter the ISBA Join Us at the Bar podcast logo contest. Please send us your logo ideas and design submissions in JPEG format, high resolution, to communications@iowabar.org. The contest is open through June 1st, and we have a very special prize for the winner.
We're going to start doing some merch. It's going to
Yes!
be awesome.
Oh, I can't
I know,
wait.
I
And if
know.
you're a subscriber, you're going to get some. So
Yes,
stay
you
tuned.
are. That's right. Subscribers will get merch, and this is going to be the last time that you're going to have access to our outtakes reel if you are not a subscriber. Hit that button. Also, we cannot encourage you enough. We are going to be back in person for the ISB annual meeting in June. We have a new location. We have new events that are going to be taking place. Thank you, YLD. Shout out to our amazing Young Lawyers Division. They have a phenomenal event planned for that week. So we would love to see you at the FFA Center on the Ankeny DMAC campus in June. Also, lots of information, more details about all the incredible events planned on our website. Thank you so much. We are your co-hosts.
Join us at the bar.
We're here for you.